We have.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a virtual jug session. Wow, I haven't done one of these in like forever, but it gives me great pleasure to say happy Trishvember to everyone, and let me welcome Trish to the VJug once again. Welcome, Trish. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for having me again. I missed last year, and I feel sad that I missed out on Trishvember last year.
Well, it got to December and we thought, well, sorry, Trish, we can't fix it in December. We have to wait another year. And joining me here in London is Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I'm great, thanks.
What did you do, Sam?
Sam just helped you set up live sessions.
I know, that's why we're late. Apologies, everyone, and thank you very much for Sam to save today. So here, Brian Vermeer would normally have been doing this session. Hopefully he'll come in just a minute, but he's giving another webinar. So he's got a cross-promotionation of webinars. Unfortunately, can't do two at once, which I'm very upset about, but I'm very pleased to be here. So, so Trish, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about Reactive, Spring, Android, Kotlin,
not Android,
Magic, all wonderful, lots of buzzwords, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, not this year, last year, me and Josh Long co-presented at Code One. And so obviously we had to do a presentation which was spring-ish, because it's like Josh. And we used JavaFX because that's one of the things that I was demoing the previous year. So we basically smooshed together a bunch of technologies and get them working in a reactive way. So this year I've updated it for the most recent version of Spring Boot. There's some nice clean APIs for working with RSocket as well. So I've kind of added that in there because that's nice and reactive. And so hopefully we'll get time to cover all of that.
Exciting. And what's it like to give a presentation with Josh? Because he types and speaks pretty fast.
Oh my God. So
or do you slow him down?
It was good, actually. I think we both had the same sort of energy and pace. It was quite fun, but I'd created my demo before the talk, but we hadn't practiced it till the day before. We spent literally the whole day before, like rehearsing who was going to switch over when, and all the individual bits and pieces. And it was really fun working with Josh, but it was really traumatic to do like a live demo with someone else, because I get super stressed about the live demos anyway, but when you have to coordinate it with someone else, it's quite challenging.
Awesome. And I love your top, Trish.
Oh yeah, do you like it?
Oh, I meant the DevOps top.
Oh, well, I've got an avocado top.
Cool avocado top as well. That's a cool avocado. I like it. If anyone did want to submit to DevOps UK, you can go to, where do you go, Stan?
DevOps. What is it? DevOps.co.uk. Wow, that went off my.
There we go. Just Google it. So the VJug session. Let me just do some housekeeping. If anyone wanted to ask Trish some questions, we'll probably leave them to the end because Trish is going to go super fast through the session. If you ping the live session channel in Slack, we will take those questions and we'll pass them over to Trish at the end. Make sure you click on the cog within YouTube or within your embedded widget, and make sure your resolution is at the highest possible so that you can enjoy this session at the highest quality. This VJug session is brought to you by Snyk, a company that is dedicated to developer security, to find vulnerabilities in your third-party dependencies automatically and remediate them for you. Did I say that like I've said it a million times?
No.
Because I have. So you can try that for free at snyk.io. Without further ado, I will pass over to Trish. Have a great one, Trish.
Great, thanks very much. So I'm going to try and share my screen, and let's see, because otherwise, without sharing my screen, we're going to get mirrored faces from everybody. Hold on. We're going to get you. Oh, no. There we go. Okay. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yep, all good.
Let me move Zoom out of the way. Okay, right. So yes, so this is a live demo. Oh, well, let's introduce myself first. Hi, I'm Trish. I work for JetBrains. I tend to do like presentations of live demos and give myself like shorten my lifespan by about 3 years every time I give one of these things. Because it is a live demo, it is almost definitely going to go wrong because it always does. Fortunately, I've given it a bunch of times before, well, like 3 times before. And there is a video of it working when I gave it at Spring 1 last month. I've also started taking all of this live demo and splitting into a series of tutorials. So it's actually much shorter videos with an accompanying blog post. So you can actually step through it step by step. So if you miss something during this session, or if something goes horribly wrong and you want to see how it should work, then go to this URL and you'll see like all the resources, all the videos, all the slides such as they are, and the links to all the tutorial steps as well. The tutorial has not finished being published yet. It should be published by the end of Christmas. So you have to like hold on like a slow drip release Netflix series. Right, so let's just go straight on. The whole point of this application is to create a stock prices application. It's kind of like a microservice type application with one backend microservice. And so there'll be like a backend Kotlin REST service, which we're going to create now, and a JavaFX front end, which is going to show the prices from the stock service on a chart. So let's jump straight in. Firstly, let's create, oh, I've got so many tabs open. Let's create ourselves a new project for this. Obviously, I'm using IntelliJ IDEA because I work for JetBrains and we created IntelliJ IDEA. So there's going to be heavy use of the IDE in this. Other IDEs are available. I'm going to create a new project using Spring Initializer because it's a Spring Boot project. I happen to be using Java 13. I am speaking very fast, aren't I? I happen to be using Java 13. You don't have to use Java 13 for this session. I'm pretty sure Java 8 onwards will work. I'm not using any features from the latest version of Java. I just wanted to see if it all hangs together properly. So I'm using Java 13. This is my new Spring Boot project. So I'm going to give it a group and an artifact. This is going to be the back end. So this is the stock service. It's a Maven project. This is going to be a Kotlin project. It doesn't really matter about the Java version for this one. Let's give it a description because otherwise I get lost with all the different services. So this is the Kotlin price service backend, I guess. And then if you want to, you can change the package. Okay, so let's step through that. I would like to use Spring Boot 2.2.1 because later on I'll be doing some RSocket stuff, and the RSocket stuff is much easier in Spring Boot 2.2 onwards. For this service, we are also going to use Reactive, Spring Reactive Web Starter, but nothing else really. And then where are we going to put it? Let's put it in demo. Let's see. Great. So it's going to go off. It's going to create everything that needs doing. Oh, it's actually found it as a Maven project. It doesn't always work. A couple of caveats as per usual. I am using the EAP version of IntelliJ IDEA. The latest version of IntelliJ IDEA is going to come out in very, very soon, but it's an EAP version. So sometimes there's things which behave interestingly. And I'm now using the full version of Spring Boot. I was using a release candidate for that too, but that should be stable. So yes, so IntelliJ IDEA, let's just give this full screen and let's see what we've got. For anyone who's not familiar with Spring Boot, one of the great things about Spring Boot is it basically creates your whole application for you. So it creates you your package and a simple application. We'll run this just to see that it works, because if it doesn't work at this point, then we're in trouble right at the beginning. And so it's created me a basic Kotlin application, not many lines of code there. You'll see, even if you're familiar with Java Spring Boot, it looks quite a lot similar to the Java Spring Boot, even when you're using Kotlin. Okay, so that works, that's fine. Doesn't do anything because there's nothing there. Right, now, what do we want to do now? What we've got now is we have the skeleton of a backend service. What we want it to do is we want to be able to connect to it via like REST and then get it to publish stock prices to us. So we will start by creating a REST controller. So let's have a REST controller and let's call it stock price REST controller. And let's create a new function. So this is Kotlin. I'm not a super expert on Kotlin. I work for JetBrains and JetBrains created Kotlin, but I'm like a sort of very long-term Java programmer. So the Kotlin stuff is fairly new to me. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about what we've got here. With Kotlin, we have functions, not methods. So I'm going to create a function with one parameter. Obviously, I'm going to lean on my IDE to help create stuff for me because generating code is much more fun than typing it. So it creates me a new function. I'm going to call this one prices. It's going to take a symbol, which is a string, and it's going to return a flux of stock price. Oh, no, not stock price, REST controller, stock price. Now, Flux is the Reactor, so that's our reactive Spring stuff. Stock price, let's just get IntelliJ IDEA to create us a stock price class. I'm going to put it in the same file because it makes things a little bit easier. I will come back to this in a minute. Okay, so now I've got one of these. What do I want to do? I need to create a flux. So let's return what this will be a kind of stub service that emits random prices. It's not going to connect to some real backend service which looks at stock prices. For now, we're just going to create a series of randomly generated prices to see the application working together. So we're going to create a flux, obviously. And what I'd like it to do is I would like this flux to emit something once a second. So I'm going to create a flux with an interval of a duration of 1 second. So it's going to tick once a second, emit something once a second. So let me just format this the way I want it. And what I want to create once a second is I want one of these stock prices once a second. So I want, I need to type it correctly, a stock price. This stock price, I want the stock price to have a symbol. That makes sense to me. I want it to have a price. So let's call it a random stock price. And I want it to have a sort of timestamp. I'm just going to use this simple local date time dot now. Okay. Now, I want to create this random stock price method. Let's create, sorry, function. Let's create a function random stock price. It's going to return me a double. And I'm going to create this fairly simply by saying I want thread local random dot current dot what's it called, next double. So I'm going to randomly generate a number between 0 and 100. Return that. And then what I can do is then create the constructor that I want in my stock price. So I can add these parameters to stock price. Just get IntelliJ IDEA to do this for me. I want to call this price. I want to call this time. So it's created all of those for me here. What Kotlin supports is the idea of a data class. So instead of having to do two-string hash code equals getters and setters, I can just say data class and it will just do all of that for me. So let me just correct this. There's probably some magic incantation to do that for me. I can just remove the redundant empty class body, and that's all I need to say what the stock price looks like. So the stock price has a symbol, a price, and a time. That's all I need. Okay, what else do we need? This is a REST controller, so this is an endpoint. So what I need is, this needs to have get mapping, and I need to give it where it's the path. So this is going to be at stocks, symbol, and I want, it produces a media type of, oops, that's not what I wanted. Media type of text event stream value. So this allows me to stream the prices. So it's just going to keep emitting these prices. Get IntelliJ IDEA to fix this up for me. Okay, so I should be able to run this now. What will we see when we run this? What we should see is we should see Spring Boot application starting up. We should be able to connect to it on, oh no, I know what I've done wrong here. So here, IntelliJ IDEA says I've created a path variable. Oh, and let's stop that. I've created the path variable and I don't have one of those in my parameters. So let's just fix that up. So now I have a path variable, which is the symbol. Now let's try. So yes, so we should be able to start up our Spring Boot application and we should be able to see it running on. So it started, that's fine. Let's open this up and it should be on. Oh my goodness, multiple monitors. Everything's in full screen, so nothing works properly. Right, so this is at stocks. I'm giving it a symbol of demo. Okay, so now here we see a price ticking every second. And the price is just a JSON value with a symbol, a price, and a time. It just keeps ticking on. So this is our back-end Kotlin service. What we're going to do is we're going to create a client to connect to this, to look at these prices and display them ultimately on a chart. Let's stop that. That's our Kotlin REST service. Now let's create a simple client. We're going to use Java for this. We're going to create a simple client to connect to this and consume those prices. In order to sort of see how it all, to see the separation of concerns, I don't want to chuck all of these in the same project. So I want to create a new project for the client side stuff. So let's create a new project. I'm going to create a new empty project and create it with multiple modules, which hopefully you'll be able to see why in a minute. So let's call this stock client. And I want to create my first module is going to be the stock client. So again, Spring Initializer. I'm going to use Java 13. I'm going to use the package is, the group is Mechanitis, stock client, Maven, Java. I'm going to stick 13 in there, even though we're probably not going to use a lot of those features. This is client code for connecting to the price service. In this client code, we're probably going to use Lombok. We are definitely going to use the reactive web stuff. What else are we going to use? That should do for now. Oh yeah, again, we have to make sure we're using Spring Boot 2.2 point something. Let's get it to create everything for us. Okay, sometimes I have some weird things where it doesn't pick up that it's a Maven project. This apparently is just applicable to my local installation of IntelliJ IDEA. I should probably fix this up at some point. Anyway, if you find it doesn't pick up that it's a Maven project, then all you have to do is just add it to, right click on your pom.xml and add it as a Maven project. Okay, so once again, we've got something which should look fairly familiar to us. We have our stock client application, which is our Spring Boot application. Now, this is just going to be a simple set of client code which connects to the back end. It's not going to be a full-blown application, so we're not even going to use this application. What I would like to do is I would like to test drive some of this functionality, which couldn't possibly go wrong. So I'm not going to have a web application, so we've got some weird artifacts going on up there. So I'm going to say this is a web application type of none. Let me just minimize this because it's doing some weird things. Web application type of none. And what else do I need to do? I'm going to do something which is test first. Crazy, I know, test-driven development. So I'm going to create a new Java class. And this is going to be web client stock client integration test, because I like typing long names. Let's create a new test. We're going to do something fairly simple. We generate a test method. I'm going to be doing happy path testing. So I'm going to, the test is going to be something like should connect to the prices server. Really, you should write much better tests than this. You want to do something more descriptive than just connect and doesn't fall over. But for the purposes of this, we'll just do like a simple happy path type test. So I want to have a new web client stock client, not an integration test, web client stock client. Let's create one of these. Let's create a new class here. We don't know what this looks like yet because we want to write our test first. So we've got our web client stock client. What do we want to do with this? We want to get some prices from it. So we'll say prices for, let's give it a test symbol. Let's create this method. I actually want this to create a flux of stock price. Now, I know we created stock price in our backend service, but that was in our backend service in Kotlin, which is an entirely separate piece of code. So we will create that in the client code in a separate way. This is going to be the symbol. Let's create one of these, but come back to it. So let's create stock price. Again, we'll just have a simple empty data class. We'll come back to this. We need to import flux. And to do the simplest thing that's going to work, we will start with a flux from array. What does IntelliJ suggest? We can have a new stock price array of 0. It'll just create us a flux with the right shape with no values in it. So then we can go back to our test. This is our prices. What do we want to do? Let's say assertions.assert set true prices dot, what have we got? Block first. Let's say block first. Let's say assert not null then. Hopefully, if we run this, it should fail because we don't have any prices in our flux at the moment. Okay, good. So it failed because it is null. Now let's go into here. Oops. What's my keyboard shortcut? What we want to do here is this is where we're going to connect to our backend. I just want to quickly check if my backend is still running. Yes, we are running. So here, what do we need to do? What we want is we're going to use web client, which we don't have. So let's create a field for web client. It's a web client. And where are we? This is so we need to inject this, add a constructor parameter. That's fine. And we'll say web client.get. We'll give it the URI where we want to go. What was our URI? It's here. This is a symbol. Means we need to give the symbol. What else do we need? We need to retrieve this. This gives us our, not what I was looking for. Right, and then we need to turn this into a flux. So we give it the type of class that we're expecting. So we expect this to be a flux of stock price. So we're going to want one of these, stock price.class. At this point, we can return this because this is a flux of stock price, but given that we're doing reactive programming inside Spring, we can actually do a bunch of other stuff. Like we can define what our retry backoff strategy is. So we could say, for example, number of retries, I don't know, 5. We can say our first backoff is after 1 second, and we can say our max backoff is like 5 seconds. And we can also do, we can define some of our error handling. So we could do something like do on error. We could say we want to log. We don't have a log. Let's use lombok to say we want log. So then we magically get our log. I quite like lombok, but it's a little bit magic. So we have log, error, and let's give it the throwable.get message. That is not the best error handling, by the way. So it's just, I just did it there to say that you can state like what you want to see in terms of error handling. You can define exactly what sort of, exactly how you want to handle different types of exceptions and things like that. So this is not ideal error handling, but it is worth thinking about how you want to handle errors. So we want to return this. We no longer want to return that. And let's see if we rerun things. I'm going to use, I tap Control twice to do run anything, which is my current favorite keyboard shortcut, which I want to run my test. Let's see how it errors this time. Oh, yes. So obviously in the test, we need to inject our web client. For now, we're just going to we'll just use the web client builder to create a new one. Okay, so it connects, that's good. And it passes because we actually do have a price coming through, which is good. We might want to have a look at what that looks like. So let's say, let's have a look at this. What have we got? Let's take like 5 of them. Let's log them. And that's block last. This is not really part of the test. This is clearly just so that we can see stuff. Let's have a look. Okay, so now we can see these ticking through. When it stops, I'll show you what they look like. So we're getting, we're connecting to this URL. We are getting, where's it gone? All right, we're getting a stock price. We can't see what that looks like. We didn't do anything with our stock price, so that's not very helpful. So now let's quickly take a look at our stock price and see what we can do for that. Stock price. We can do the same thing with Lombok that we did with Kotlin. So we can say this is a data class, and we can say we want a required args constructor, and we can say we want a private string symbol and a private double price and a private local date time and that should work. Let's see what happens. Let's run in. Okay, here we go. So what we're seeing now is where we see this take one, we are getting a stock price, which has got a symbol, a price, and a time in. And implicitly, we also have a toString method so that we can actually display that. So what we've got here now is we've got the backend emitting prices, and we have a simple client which connects to it using Spring's web client to connect to it, parse these prices, and turn them into a stock price, an instance of stock price. That's great, but that's not what we said we were going to do. We would like to display this on the chart. So let's go straight ahead and try and do something visual. And this is going to require a little bit of faffing around, because what we're going to do is we're going to run JavaFX sort of in a Spring Booty way. So we're going to create a JavaFX application, but we're going to have it all wired up with Spring Boot, so we get some of the goodness that we get with Spring and Spring Boot inside our JavaFX application. So let's do that first. Where are we now? Let's get rid of this. We have a stock client module. What I'd like to do is create a new separate module for the actual UI. So we're going to create a new module. Again, using Spring Initializer, we're going to create com.mechanitis. This is called stock UI. Java, we'll say 13 again. This is the JavaFX user interface. So you'll see that I'm creating this as a new module, not as a new project, because it's still all client code, but I just want to keep it a little bit separate from the simple library that connects to the backend service. I don't think I actually need anything from any of the Spring Boot starters. We might want some later, but I don't think we want them now. Let's just create everything. Let's see what happened. Let's have a look for our, once again, it has not recognized. Oops. Ooh, what happened? I think I might need to give it a bit of time just to catch its breath. It said, you've created so many things. Okay, there we go. Go away. Stop being annoying. That's interesting. Let me just quickly see if it created the files on the file system. Stock client. Let me bring this over here so you can see what I'm doing. Stock client, stock UI. You are there. Oh, there we go. It's just being a little bit slow. This doesn't move quite as fast as I do. Right, let's add it as a Maven project. Make sure it all syncs up properly. Stock UI application. Again, this one is not a web application, so we can say the web application type of none. What it is, though, multiple Spring Boot run configurations detected. Sure, show it in a helpful way. What this is, though, is a JavaFX application. So we need to create our JavaFX application. Let's start by creating a new Java class called chart application. This extends application. We need to add a Maven dependency for JavaFX. Open JFX. We need JavaFX graphics. If I show you the pom.xml, you can see that we've put the correct dependency inside here. Let's enable auto import so Maven is always up to date for me. Now import our application. We want a JavaFX application. Get IntelliJ IDEA to implement all our methods. We'll come back to this in a minute. What we want to do is we want to go back to our Spring Boot application. Let me open up the project window so you can see where we are. What we have here is we have a JavaFX application, and we also have a Spring Boot application. For complicated reasons to do with Java 9 modularity, module path versus class path JavaFX, we sort of have to have these two applications running together in order to get them to run in the kind of the simplest way possible. There are other ways of doing this, but this works fairly simply, and you don't have to mess around with modularizing your application or using module path. But what you do need to do, instead of doing the Spring Boot Spring application.run, you do application, meaning the JavaFX application, .launch, and then you say you're going to launch a chart application .class, obviously. And you're going to give it args. And then if I run this, I should get it not erroring, which is the important thing really. I will probably also get somewhere a little Java. It won't be a window, but a new process for Java opening. There we go. So we have a new process for Java. There's no window because I haven't told it to launch anything, but it has run. It has not failed, which is the key point. Okay, so now let's carry on doing some. Let's carry on wiring this together in a Spring Boot kind of way. We don't need to use this one anymore. The Spring Boot application is done with. We just need to go into chart application. Now, chart application, the start method takes a primary stage, and this stage is the thing that you're going to use to sort of draw on and to create your UI. I would actually quite like to rename the stage because I only have one stage, so let's call it stage. And what else am I going to do? I want to do this in a kind of Springish kind of way. So what I would like to do is I would like to have a context. Let's create a field for configurable application context. I'll come to that in a minute. I want to publish my event. It's going to be a new stage ready event, and it's going to take my stage. I'm going to create one of these. I'm going to create it as an inner class just to keep things simple. So it takes a stage, passes the stage up to the super. This won't be private because other things will look at it. And it can be a static class. Okay, so what this means is that when the JavaFX framework has kind of set up this application and created a stage, I can now actually just I can publish an event saying the stage is ready. So now I can have something else listening to that event to set up the stage, which is kind of like a more event-driven way of programming inside JavaFX. So what else? We need to create we have to create the context. So we're going to override our init method. We're going to say this is new Spring application builder. That should just work for me. Oh no, sorry, this needs to be stock UI application. And yes, that should work. And then I've created my context. So I have an initialization method. It makes sense to me to also have some sort of teardown method. So let's also override our stop method. So when we stop, we're going to close our context and we're going to exit our application effectively. So that's kind of our cleanup. These gray things are annoying me. We don't need these exceptions. Let's just remove the exceptions. I mean, I could just ignore it, but it's driving me crazy. Let's get rid of those. And then the last thing I need to do is I need something to listen to this stage ready event that's published, because fine, I'm publishing an event, but something needs to listen to that. So what are we going to do for that? Let's create we're running out of time much faster than I expected. Let's create a new Java class. This is called the stage initializer. I'm going to do it with an S because I'm English. And this implements application listener, and it's listening for a stage ready event. I'm going to import this so I don't have such a long line at the top there, implement my methods. So what do I want to do when I have one of these stage ready events? Well, I guess probably one of the things I want to do is I probably want to get to the stage, I would have thought. Now we don't have a method called getStage, so let's create a method called getStage, and it's going to return a stage, really surprisingly. And we have a method which sort of does this, because here in the super, we pass the stage up as the, what's this called? As the source. So we can actually just return the source, but obviously we need to cast it to a stage. And we know that this is the stage because this is what we passed in as the source. So that's fine, that's our stage. What do we want to do with the stage? Well, we want to kind of create it. We want to set the scene. We have a new scene. We need to give a parent, which we'll come to in a minute. And we're going to have it 800 by 600. And we need to show it. Let's create the parent. Let's move that up there. Okay, and so there's one more thing we really need to do to make the Spring wiring integrate well with. We want the Spring Boot stuff to integrate with JavaFX. Now, JavaFX uses FXML, or can use FXML, to define what the UI looks like, which is, not surprisingly, an XML format for the UI. In order to use this, we use an FXML loader. So we're going to add a Maven dependency on FXML, open JFX, FXML. So now we should be able to import this. FXML loader, you have to give it a place to find the FXML files from. We are going to find them from chart resource. I'm going to create a field for my chart resource. This is going to be a resource, a Spring Framework resource. And this is going to be from class path, chart FXML. We'll create that in a minute. So chart resource.get URL. This is our FXML loader. So here's a really nice example of the Spring functionality working well with the JavaFX functionality. This needs to be inside a try catch. Let's just move this down. And then we'll use the FXML loader to load the parent. The last piece I was talking about in terms of integrating JavaFX and Spring Boot is the FXML loader has a controller factory. Now what this does is it takes a class and takes a class name and then looks up where to find that class from. And that sounds quite a lot like we would get that from an application context. So let's wire in our application context, create a field, application context. Let us add a constructor parameter for the application context, and context.getBean of the class. And now the FXML loader is going to use our application context to find the correct beans. I just need to quickly check. Right, this needs to be, obviously we are in Springlandia, so we are going to annotate everything with everything. So this is a component. Right, so what we've done is, you probably won't see anything if I actually rerun everything, but what we've done is we've created a simple JavaFX application which uses Spring to actually wire in things. So we're able to use things like the application context, and we're able to use application context to get beans, to publish events, to listen to events, things like that. So that's quite a nice, oh, that's not what I wanted to run. That's quite a nice way of having those two things work together. I don't want that test to run. What I do want to do is, hey, so you can stop. I want to, oh dear. Oh, sorry, that's like, oh my goodness, that's actually, that's actually a cold call thing trying to sell me something in the middle of my webinar. Thanks for that. Right, so I'm trying to run stock UI application. And then again, we won't really see anything. We should see it not error. Oh, but it will error because we haven't created our chart fxml. Let's see what happens. Yes, it did error. That's good because I predicted it erroring. Okay, so the next step is to actually create the line chart, which is going to display the prices. So this is where we're going to use fxml to define what that line chart looks like, and we're going to create the JavaFX stuff to get that to work. Oh, now what have I done? Oh my goodness gracious me. I'm worried about time. That's why I'm starting to rush. So let's kill this because we don't need this. Let's create our chart XML. We're going to create an fxml file. We're going to call it chart, shockingly. We're going to, it needs a chart controller. We can get IntelliJ IDEA to create this class for us, which we will come back to. First, I want to put it in the right place. That's fine. You see that IntelliJ IDEA automatically refactored the package as well. I don't care about the pref height and width here, and I want this to be a VBox, not an anchor pane. All right. What else can we do? There are some other bits and pieces I can do to kind of show how this works, but I think the simplest thing to do, given the time constraints, is to jump straight in and create ourselves a line chart. So our line chart here, let me check what I need for my line chart. It needs an FXM ID, which is going to be called chart, and I want it to have a height of 600. Now, it says I don't have one of these, so we can get IntelliJ IDEA to create one of these. Inside our chart controller, it creates a line chart. This has been defined in the fxml. It can be private actually. And my line chart, I want it to be, I want to have string values on the x-axis, and I want double values on the y-axis. The double will be the price. And we're going to define what that chart looks like in here. So on the x-axis, I'm going to have a category axis. It's going to have a label of time. And on the y-axis, I'm going to have a number axis with a label of price. So it's fairly straightforward to sort of define what your UI looks like inside the fxml. I like to keep the UI stuff inside fxml because it gives you a really clear separation between sort of business logic and creating the UI, so you don't end up smooshing the stuff together in the wrong class. It's so easy to do with user interface stuff. Okay, so now I have a line chart. This needs to be a component, and I should be able to rerun my application. Won't see much, but I should be able to rerun something. It should be empty, I think. We'll get a line chart that's empty. Yay, I'm so happy. I thought that wasn't going to work. So now we have an empty line chart. So that's not terribly exciting because what we wanted to do is to display the prices on here, the prices from our backend service. But that's good because that obviously is going to be our next step after we do this. So this is a kind of side step into creating libraries, reusable libraries using Spring Boot specifically, so that you can create beans that can be used amongst different applications or different parts of your application if you want. And we'll see why in a minute. So our chart controller is going to want access to, let's put it down here. We're going to want a private web client stock client. Now we need to add a dependency on that other module because that was defined in the different module. So we'll add that. It will add that dependency to Maven. So this is not a dependency inside IntelliJ IDEA. This is Maven managing that dependency. So it should be reproducible even inside your continuous integration environment or whatever. So let's add a constructor parameter for this. That gets wired in. IntelliJ IDEA says, okay, that's fine and everything, but I can't find a bean that looks like this. So we will go back to our stock client module, which was our client code that connects to the backend service. I want to create a new class inside here. It's going to be called client auto configuration. This is going to be configuration. And I want to have a bean, which is a web client, stock client. I'm going to return a web client, stock client, return new. This takes a web client. Web client. Let's pass in a web client as a parameter. Okay, looks good to me. Okay, IntelliJ IDEA says I don't know where to get one of these from, so we're going to create a bean for one of these as well. We have a bean for a web client. Oh, again, a web client, and we can return a web client using the builder. Now, I want this client code to be sort of a reusable library to be reused by potentially a bunch of different applications. So some of those applications might already have a web client. So I'm going to say this is conditional on missing bean. So if someone already has a web client, then I'm not going to call this. Our error has gone away, so this should all be working the way we expect it to. So now we've defined a bean called web client stock client, which is of type web client stock client. But when we go back to our chart controller, it says, okay, well, I still don't know anything about this because we declared that bean in an entirely different module in an entirely different project. So what we want to do is we want to say inside stock client, we want to say, share my beans with everybody. So let's create a new directory, meta inf hyphen, isn't it? And we create a new file, spring.factories, and we define enable auto configuration. And I want to auto configure it with blah 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 client auto configuration. So that's where my beans are. And now when I go back to my chart controller, now it finds that bean, and so you can reuse those things all around the place, which is good because that's what we want to use to connect to the back end. Okay, great. So that's simple a side story into auto configuration. Now we want to actually use that to connect to the back end to display the reactive data on our chart. So we are in chart controller. What can we do inside chart controller? Let's check that I'm doing the right thing. Right, the chart controller is responsible for wiring up the sort of MVC side of things. So I want to be able to set the data on the chart, obviously, because otherwise without setting data on it, there's not going to be anything to show on the chart. So I'm going to define an initialize method, initialize, spelled the other way, and this is called when all of the fxml stuff has been created and fully populated. And so when I've got this, what I need to do is I need to set the data on my chart. So we're going to set the data. The data is going to be series list. Let's create a local variable. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. let's create a local variable for series list. So each chart can display more than one series. We're only going to display one series because it's easier. If you're interested in seeing more than one series, the full tutorial has an example of how to create it with more than one series of data. So this is going to be fxml, fx collections, just create an empty observable array list. And so this is a list of series. So in order to have a list of series, we have to have a series. So let's have a new series. And this series is string double, and it needs series data. I want to create this as a field. We should be able to see why soon. Do something more sensible with that. Oh no. I decided to do this a different way around to how I normally do it. So now I don't know. Now I don't know how to get it to automatically do stuff for me. I'm going to add the series to this. Oh, I know why. So if I create that as a field, then it's going to create the series data as an observable list. Okay. I find the generics on this a little bit difficult to read, but you know, the point here is that we have a list of chart data. So these are the points. This is like string double pairs, which are going to be displayed on the chart. If we want, I guess we could add an import for that to reduce it a tiny bit. And we could add an import for this to make it a tiny bit smaller. It doesn't really make that much difference. Anyway, the point is that this is the collection which stores all the points which are going to be displayed on the chart itself. So we could actually help. We can inline this here. So we don't, because we really don't care about a lot of these things. We can import this. And what we really could do if we want to, if we're going full modern Java, we could just say, that's fine. I don't care about that. And I don't care about this. I don't care about this. Just get rid of all of that boilerplate, because this is just not really important. It's just a series of wiring to wire up a list of series and the individual series and the data points for that individual series. We don't really care about that. What we care about is this. So what we really want to do is we want to update this with the live data coming from the back end. How do we do that? Well, that's what we've got the web client stock client for. We want to get the prices for a symbol. I'm just going to hard code one for now. You can imagine that you're going to pass this in from somewhere else. And then you're going to subscribe to this. We can subscribe consumers to this. The consumer is going to look at all of those prices and do something with it. The simplest thing to do is to subscribe this chart controller to the prices for now. So we can have this implement consumer from Java util function, which is consuming stock prices. We have it implement the methods, and then what it does is we have to decide what to do. Every time we see a new stock price, what do we want to do? Well, we want to add it to our data. So we want series data, and we want to add new data. The X point is going to be the time. So this is going to be stock price. It's not the most elegant way to do stuff, but stock price, let's say get second. This needs to be a string value, so we're just going to wrap it in string.value of. And then this is going to be stock price get price. There we're basically setting the X and Y values for the chart. This kind of looks fine. Every time we get a stock price, we kind of want to add it to the series data. We do need to do one more thing just to make this a little bit easier. Well, we want to do one more thing to make it work properly, actually. This chart controller is running on one thread. Specifically, this accept method is running on one thread, listening to stock prices. This series data, when it changes, needs to be redrawn by the UI thread. And so we need to tell the UI thread to do this. So we can do this by saying, oh, I've just found a new interesting way to do this. I'm going to turn this into a Lambda because I can. And then I'm going to wrap this in an arg. And what I want to do is I need to call this inside platform.runLater. Now that says all of this code here, I want you to run it on the UI thread when you get a chance. So that's why it's a Lambda expression inside this run later thing. Now, theoretically, when we rerun, I have a feeling I've missed something out, but when we rerun, we should get prices on the UI. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's working. So excited. This thing here, this is the name of the series. So let's just quickly go in and give the series a name. Where is our series? It's here. Let's just give it a name of the symbol. New series. Yeah. Symbol. Oh yes, because I haven't got one of those. Okay, rerun. Okay, so now you can see the name of the symbol, which happens to be symbol, so it's not like super readable, I suppose. The name of the symbol is here. So if you had more than one price that you subscribe to, you see all the different names for the prices there. Now, we are at we're at 5 o'clock. There are other things I wanted to do, like I wanted to show the same thing, but using RSocket instead of using the web client, instead of using server-sent events. The code looks very, very similar, but the point is you're using a protocol which is specifically designed for reactive streaming. So I don't really have time to show that. I mean, I don't have time to write it. I guess I could open up the code so you can have a look at what it looks like. Let's have a look for this. And I will be ready to take some questions anyway. Let's have a quick look at, hello, I can see you. Let's see. Oh, I didn't do it here. Oh, well. Anyway, I covered doing the RSocket stuff in my longer tutorial. So if you are interested, you can go and have a look at the tutorial or in the other demo of this from Spring 1, because then I cover it in that. I see there are some questions. So should we take questions?
Yeah, sure. One of the questions that was in the other channel so hi Trisha.
Hey, how you doing?
What Simon and I just changed out. There was one question in the YouTube channel, like, what is the plugin you're using for the things in the bottom of your screen, the suggestions?
Like the keyboard shortcuts?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Presentation Assistant.
There was somebody was already suggesting that, but they were not sure, so I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, I find it really useful because obviously I'm doing loads of magic with the keyboard shortcuts, and I don't want to stop all the time and say I'm using this shortcut.
Fair enough. Fair enough. There was somebody on the channel who asked a specific question. You were writing the server-side code in Kotlin and the client-side code in Java. Is there any particular reason, or was it just for demo purposes?
The main reason is because when I originally gave this presentation, Josh Long was doing the backend and he was going to do it in Kotlin, and I was doing the client-side code and I was going to do it in Java. Because I hadn't learned any Kotlin at that time. And also because I sort of wanted to show, I mean, it's not really interoperable because they're two separate services, but I kind of wanted to show two different ways of doing the same kind of thing. So we can see the Spring Boot with Java and Lombok, for example, on the client side, and Spring Boot with Kotlin on the server side. You can see you get like some similar things. There's some really nice features with Kotlin which I'd really like to show, but I don't think I really have time. But if I had chance to do the RSocket stuff on the server, you get to see some more Kotlin.
Did you actually try to use JavaFX with Kotlin code?
Yeah, so one of the things I did after I gave this presentation at Spring 1 was I converted all of the Java code into Kotlin to see if it really gave me anything. The thing is that actually, especially when you're using Lombok for data classes, which data classes is one of my favorite things. When you're using Lombok for data classes, there wasn't a massive gain in terms of readability or fewer lines of code by using Kotlin. So, and I'll grant you, I'm not a Kotlin expert, so there might be some more idiomatic ways of doing stuff that I hadn't picked up on. So yes, I do have a version of this which is in Kotlin, the Java client code and some of the JavaFX stuff, but I haven't spent enough time looking into that.
What do you personally like more, like the Java code with Lombok, or are you preferring Kotlin? Because there always are two camps, you know, and it's like one or the other. But I want to hear your personal opinion on that one.
I quite like Lombok for papering over some of the problems, some of the things that Java has not got around to addressing yet. So I do like the data thing, and I like the ability to add an annotation and get log. But I'm not really keen on too much magic, which is one of the things that sometimes trips me up with Spring Boot, and Lombok, with using annotations for kind of like doing magic stuff. It sometimes trips you up. I know that Kotlin is kind of like magic baked in, but I think I prefer Kotlin really for things like data classes, because it's a first class language thing instead of a kind of annotation which is papering over the cracks. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah.
There's a few more things I like about Kotlin. So I really wanted to, where is this? This is tutorials. I'm kind of surprised I don't have this. Let me try and open another project, because there's something else I quite like, which I didn't think I was going to like. I have many examples of this kind. So yeah, this is more like it. When you've got more than one controller, so this is my Kotlin service after I put the RSocket stuff in. So I have the REST controller like I had before, but what I've done with the meat of the prices method is I've put it into a service. So here I have a service. It has it's the same thing. It does exactly the same thing as before to create the flux of the individual prices. But you don't have to. What this would look like in Java is you'd have the return type, and then you would have a block body. So you would have a method that looks like this. But you actually don't really need all of that. You actually just say, look, this method is basically the same as this method over here. So that's quite a nice feature in Kotlin, especially if you've got something like this, where basically what you need is you need two methods. You need a method here because you need to annotate it with the REST stuff, and you need a method here because you need to annotate it with the RSocket stuff. But the methods that are basically they're calling down to this other service. You don't need any more boilerplate around what that method looks like.
Yeah, I totally agree, but it's still a matter of taste, probably.
Yeah, by preference. If I started a new project, I would still use Java, because I've been programming Java for like 20 years, and I've been programming Kotlin for like 6 months.
I get that. Well, for so far, that were the questions from the Slack channel and the YouTube channel. So thank you for this impressive live coding session, Trisha. A lot of compliments on the channel. I really loved it, and well, I've got a lot to learn, to be fair.
Great. Thank you for having me once again. I always love doing the VJUG stuff.
So yeah, well, then I will say see you next time.
Yep. See you next November.
All right. All right. For now, let me just point the spotlight video. Yes. So for now, thank you for watching the VJUG. We will be there next month. We do not know yet what session will be on there. But thanks again for watching. Thank you, Trisha. And this session will be online directly from now. If you want to rewatch it, please do. If you have any questions, please post them in the live channel on Slack, and we will do our very best to answer them. And well, I see Trisha is already on there, so we will try to answer your questions even afterwards. Thanks again for watching. See you next month, and bye-bye.